The first example considers the decision whether to take or reject a project. You have two projects labeled L and B with the following cash flows. Project L requires an investment of $10 million and generates $11 million in year 1. Project B first generates $10 million in year 0 and then requires an investment of $11 million in year 1. The cash flows of Project B might seem a bit strange now, but bear with me and I will give you a real-world example of a project that generates these cash flows. Assume that the cost of capital is 5%. Let's start by calculating the recommendation of the NPV and IRR rules for Project L. The NPV of Project L is $476,190. You can check this in Excel. Because the NPV is positive, according to the NPV rule, you should take it. Let's turn to the IRR rule. The IRR of Project L is 10%. Because 10% beats the cost of capital of 5%, according to the IRR rule, you should take it. As in the Jane example, both rules recommend the same action for Project L. Next, let's turn to analyze Project B. The NPV of this project is minus $476,190. Because this number is negative, the NPV rule recommends that we do not invest in it. Let's now use the IRR rule. The IRR of this project is again 10%. Some students are surprised that this project has the same IRR as Project L. Take a moment and enter the numbers in Excel and check that indeed 10% is the IRR of Project B. Since the IRR beats the cost of capital, the IRR rule recommends that we take Project B. As you can see, Project B is an example in which the NPV and IRR rules disagree. The NPV recommends that we reject the project, whereas the IRR rule recommends that we take it. What is going on? Take a close look at the cash flows of these two projects. Note that the magnitudes are the same, but with opposite signs. You can think of these two projects as representing opposite sides of a transaction. For example, you can think of Project L as lending. You first have a negative cash flow of 10 million when you lend the money out. And in year 1, you have a positive cash flow of 11 million when the money is paid back to you, with interest. Similarly, you can think of Project B as borrowing. You first receive the money, a positive cash flow, and later you repay it with interest. The fact that the IRR is the same for both projects simply reflects the fact that the interest rate on the loan is 10%. Now, in this example, the opportunity cost of capital is the rate at which people lend and borrow in the market. Lending at 10%, while the alternative is to lend at 5%, is a good deal. However, borrowing at 10% when you could have borrowed at 5% is a pretty bad idea. The IRR correctly tells you the rate at which the transaction takes place. However, it does not tell you which side of the transaction you are on. The NPV, on the other hand, gets it right. It tells you that you should lend but not borrow at 10% when the opportunity cost of capital is 5%. The moral of this example is that you should be careful when applying the IRR rule to projects that look like Project B.